What were some of your promotions that you were offered during and after the war?
Well, I'll tell you, before I left for the service, my father came down to me in the basement. We were cleaning up water. We had a little water in the basement. Mm-hmm. And my father said, well, now, I hope you do well, Paul. Well, don't volunteer. Don't ever volunteer. Mm-hmm. Now, that was very important because I was offered to be an officer because of what I did. They said I should be an officer. I said, no way. One of my responsibilities was the new boys that were coming in to back up the troops, I would introduce them to the officers. But I'd never see some of those officers again. Their responsibility was to lead their men in battle. That wasn't my cup of tea. No way was I going to volunteer to be an officer. But beyond that, after the war was over, they wanted me twice to go to West Point. Well, one of my jobs was to lecture to the men to what they could expect when they get back to the United States. And I said to them, by all means, don't volunteer to get into the Federal Reserve, mm-hmm. where fellows would volunteer in the Federal Reserve. What happens to those men when we have trouble out of the country? They're sent right there first. Mm-hmm. They're the first ones to go, and I don't want to get involved with that. I don't want my. But I tell you, the major gave me a bad time. He said, "That's not what we want you to lecture on." I said, "I don't care. I don't want them to do that because if you get into the Army, they'll tell you where to go and what to do. You'll have nothing to say about it." Mm-hmm. That's the way I felt.
Mm-hmm. And you were PFC, right?
Yeah.
And
well, no.
You got.
Well, what happened was in one of my lectures. Oh boy, now we're getting into a subject that is very important, though. You see, what we're having over there in the Persian Gulf now, we have little factions of governmental and poor economy and all that, and they're killing each other all the time over there, constantly. One of the things that maybe, Paul, that I would like you to know, I want to put you into this position. You're sitting here, you're under air conditioning, you're very comfortable, mm-hmm. but now you're a soldier. Now where are you? This is in the middle of winter. Mm-hmm. It's below zero. Our feet are freezing. We're losing our feet because of gangrene. They cut them off. Mm-hmm. Now, what happens beyond that? We got to go to the bathroom. Where do you think you're going to go? There are no toilets.
It's survival.
There are no toilets. Yeah, mm-hmm. Yeah, you're surviving. Mm-hmm. But look what you got to. I'm just explaining it to you. Those are important points for people that don't know anything about war.
How you almost got promoted from your lecture. Remember, you gave a lecture. You were a PFC, and then the guy promoted you.
Oh, he promoted me to corporal.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, what happened was that's the time I gave the lecture and told the men not to enlist in the government. I mean, what do you call it?
Reserves.
Reserves, yeah.
Okay. Well.
Now, but the point was, I didn't cover the point that gave me the promotion because I'm so concerned about the youth, you, and the young people like you being forced into the Army. And then we have problems throughout the world where our troops are called in to solve those problems. We have nothing to do with it, like over in Persia. And the thing is, they didn't ask to be in. Here it is Christmas, I told you before. It's Christmas. And the Germans are singing the Christmas carols. Well, what happens? I started the Christmas carols on our side. They were within shouting distance. And none of us shot a gun at each other. It's because both of us were young, our future was ahead of us, and some politicians brought us into this terrible mess. And so therefore, I said, the United Nations, you know what the United Nations is?
Mm-hmm.
Where is it?
Huh.
United Nations, where is it? You know? In New York? Yeah, the United Nations, the big complex where all the countries come together.
What did you do after the war was over?
When the war was over, since I could handle the German language, I was given the responsibility to get involved with the various governments in Europe. One particular government had to do with Germany. And there was a Frenchman who was president of France, that while the war was going on, the Germans were so powerful that they overran France. And the president of France didn't want to have any more killing. So he gave up France to Germany without a battle. But the French people hated that. So now the war is over and he's taken to trial for doing that. That's Marshal Pétain. That was his name. And so what happened was, I wanted to see this, but I didn't have credentials to go to see it. This was in a palace in Paris where this was being had. And I wanted to see it. So what did I do? How did I get in? Well, I had to go through the guard. As the car went up to the guards, I hopped on the running board on the opposite side of where the guard was checking the credentials for the driver. And I was below the window. Now the car pulls out the park and he makes a right turn that exposed me to the guards. The guards started blowing all over the place and they chased me. I ran up into what they call a rotunda, that steps going into a big room. There I mixed with the people and I lost them. But now how do I get into the courtroom? Well, I got to go through another guard. I had to go down the hall, another guard. So the guard said to me in French, "Where's your pass?" I can't speak French, so I said, "No compris." No compris means I can't speak French. So she called the guard over with a rifle, and he butts me. I butt him back, and we had a hustle. Whistles blew. There were 3 guards up at the end of the hall. They had their white wigs and the black robes, and the one came down. It was a woman. She spoke perfect English. She said, "Soldier, what seems to be the trouble?" I said, "You realize we Americans saved your country from the Germans?" And I said, "I am here to see the history here. This is history. This is written in the books that this president gave up France, and the people are against him. They want to exile him. He's here for trial, rather. Like Napoleon, same thing. Napoleon was the same thing. That happened to him too." And I said, "I think we deserve the privilege. This is history. We're here. We're in history." She says to me, "Follow me." I followed her. Right in the courtroom. I sat next to her. Marshal Pétain was from here to Grandma away. I didn't understand anything.
How close was that?
What?
How close was that?
Oh, about 10 feet or so.
Uh-huh.
But I didn't understand anything was happening. So why did I waste my time going there? Number one, my buddies were in the bars drinking, making a fool of themselves. I had nothing to do with that. I was in Europe. This is history. Mother and I are going to come back someday. And we were here when it happened. But I could read about it in the army paper the next day. But I didn't understand anything in the trial.
How was traveling back from Europe?
Traveling back from Europe, we got on the boat on the coast of France and went up to London to England, England. And on the way up, we passed what's that cliff between England and France? We passed the Dover Cliff, high cliff, and our boat took the course up the channel, and the guns went off. Holy smoke! They were shooting at a mine in the water. If we would have hit the mine, it would have blew the ship up. I said to myself, "This is a heck way to die on the ship after we went through the war." That's where that was.
How have these experiences in the war affected your life?
Well, I think, Paul, it's a little bit my nature as a human being, in that I didn't have any money. I hadn't graduated from college yet. And yet, what am I going to do? Like you feel now, what am I going to do? You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But the opportunity came up where my brother, who was in the appliance business, had trouble buying enough appliances because the competition that was setting in by the larger appliance dealers, they were buying equipment cheaper than he could buy it, and he needed the money to buy the appliances. So he says, "Paul," he says, "how about you buying my gas company?" I said, "Oh, gee, Joe," at him. "Oh, for goodness sake." I said, "Only the farmers use it for water heaters and stoves. What kind of business is that?" That was my first answer. But my second answer was, I didn't know what the heck I was going to do anyway. But I thought to myself, if I buy his business, then I'm going to be selling gas appliances, actually with him. All the appliances that I sold, I would sell the gas. I made more money in the gas than I did on the appliances. And that's how I started in business. And that was the start of my propane gas business.
I understand that you don't agree with war. What's your take on that?
Well, I went back to that original story when I spoke about the young men shouldn't get involved with war, because if you're called into the National Guard, they tell you where to go and what to do. You're not a free man. You must listen to your superiors, or you're a dead man. And I don't agree with that. I think the United Nations, which I mentioned before, the United Nations create a government whereby they get together, and any little country like Iraq gets into trouble, the United Nations will go in with their forces that are backed up by the major powers, Russia and the United States, according to their economy and according to their population, could go in and solve that problem. Just like we go over now with the, what's that thing they don't fly, it's self-contained. The what?
Drone?
That's like a drone. Yeah, exactly. Now we go with a drone and kill them. That's the difference. Anyway, that's where I got my entry. Sharp thing, right on the soldier's head. He shot him right between the eyes, killed him immediately. The guy next to me. That's right. And I was a sharpshooter too. I have a badge for a sharpshooter. Only, you know what I mean. That's the way that was. But he was killed right away. Oh, well, then, eventually, as it came along, the captain said to Paul, "Call your site and retreat." I mean, back away. The slope was behind us, so we backed up on our bellies till we got over the end of the slope. Now we were away. The Germans couldn't see us down there. But then we were in Company C, that was my company, and Company F, they went around the back and hit them on the side. They were there, and they went almost like behind them to shoot them. That's how we won that battle.